Hi, Mark with Brick Repair. We're out here in Royal Oak, Michigan. We're going to do some tuck pointing on these three bottom steps. There's some joints that are missing, and the joints are starting to get moisture soaked and deteriorated. It's real cold out here. It's about 32 degrees in Michigan, so in order to combat the elements, we're going to actually, once we grind it out, we're going to torch all our joints, and we're going to point our mortar into nice warm dry brick, and then blow heat over the top of it to help it achieve its set. When you're doing work in the winter time, you don't want your mortar or your concrete to freeze. So you can put some accelerators in there, and then we're going to go a step further and torch it so that we can get it set up and it'll be nice and dry and it'll be solid and it'll last. When I grind out my joints, I want to make sure I've got nice clean edges on the brick, and I'm not grinding into the brick itself, just the mortar joint. Cool. You can see the previous repair work done and how the joints are cracking and separating. You can also see the mortar color difference, which is why we're going over all the joints, grinding them to an even depth and pointing in new mortar. James is grinding out these joints. And if you look at his work, you can see his lines are real clean and they're getting ground out real well. We look at our joints after we've ground them out. You can see how light of a white that is there and how we get into a darker mortar here. That's because these joints have been absorbing moisture. So when we put in our new mortar, that should help alleviate that problem. We ground out all our mortar joints. Now we're brushing out all the last of our debris in here, making sure that where we're going to put our new mortar is nice and dust free so we bond properly. We'll go ahead and we'll heat these areas with a torch, and then we'll point in new mortar. So it's going in a nice warm dry area and it'll set up properly. Good. Before we mix our mortar, we're going to add a little calcium chloride to the water. That's going to chemically react and help our mortar set up faster so it achieves its initial set. 50% of your concrete and mortar strength comes from its initial set. And because it is cold out here, even though we're using the torch, we want our mortar to set up and we want our joints to bond properly. We're torching them out real good. I just want them warm to the touch. I don't want them scorching hot. If you look down in here, you can see it drying out the moisture. Make sure my mortar squeezes out of my grout bag at a nice even pace and I don't have to work too hard to put it in on top of the joints. Go ahead and pipe my mortar in. Any of the spots where I've got drips on the brick, I don't want to touch those right now. I actually want to let that set up a little bit and pull it off once it starts to harden. If I try, we don't want to, well, maybe not tomorrow, maybe the next day. We don't want to encourage a dirty job. Now, we're working small manageable areas. I'm not putting this section step here yet. I'm going to have this as a finished product or close to it before I do. I don't want to be squishing mortar into my steps on the area I'm in. I'm just kind of going through and bit by bit, tooling out where it's set up. And where it's not set up, I'm hitting it with some more of the torch. just working it bit by bit. Now, we're not forcing a set out of our mortar, we're coaxing it. And you can see the areas where it's dry. See how nice that brushes off of there? Whereas over here, you can see it's still real wet on the face. So it's too wet to try and clean up. We're just going to keep working our mortar right into our joints. We've pointed in our mud. Now we can start going with our final clean. We're going to brush, and I'm not rubbing the brush. I'm kind of sweeping the mortar off of there because I don't want to smear it into the face. So I get a nice clean finish on it. And then I'll hit it with one last final strike of the joiner. Give us some nice clean lines and shine that joint up a little bit. And when we acid wash that tomorrow, well, in a couple days, depending on the weather and how much this sets up, it'll be nice and clean. Just going to continue to gently warm it and also go back over our joints that we've recently done as we work our way down. We've gone and brushed out all our mortar that came off that top step from these joints down here so that we can keep it going real nice. You want to make sure you're constantly moving it, and you're not moving it somewhere you're going to catch something on fire. I also want to fill in these joints right here so that the fronts of my steps look right. Some of these spots might actually be better off to pull up some mud once it starts to set up just a hair and work it into the joint. Good. The really important thing to remember this time of year is you can't be in a rush. You just got to take your time and coax the nice sand out of your brick and work in a warm area with warm material. Use of chloride in a torch does not give you the right to neglect common sense either. Well, it's like 32 degrees right now, 31 degrees. I would not be attempting this in 10 degrees. I wouldn't attempt this in 15 degrees, you know. Now once this is all done, we're probably going to stay here for a good 45 minutes, just kind of blowing some warm air over this, just to make sure that we don't have any kind of issues.